Hi everyone, let's talk makeup. And as you can tell, I'm here with a bare face because I'd like to talk to you about a foundation that I've been using in recent weeks, and that is the Haley's, what is this? The Haley's Beauty Reset Liquid Matte Foundation. So this is a product that I discovered recently at Target. It's part of one of their new lines that they've made available. This used to be a kind of online only makeup brand, a lot like Makeup Geek, Violet Voss, and that they are now available at Target. So I recently did a video doing showing the lip products that I bought at Target and kind of talking about my experience with those. And in that video, I mentioned that I had picked up the foundation. So first of all, they have a kind of a limited range at most Targets of these, and it varies Target to Target what kind of shades they have available. At least that's what I've seen based on the couple of Targets that I've been to in my area. So my Target tended to have a decent range. If you are on the way lighter side, I didn't spot any for like the fairest of the fair. I'm not sure if the darkest of the dark would find one either, but everybody in between I think had a good range of them. Because it is, there are no testers, it's a little bit hard to guess your foundation shade. I hadn't done any research on this brand online at all. I hadn't seen any swatches, nothing like that. So I went by the outer packaging, which is very deceptive because this kind of looked like, well, no, looking at it at the reflection over here, kind of looks like it's a little bit dark for me. This is too dark for me, which is why I waited till now to do a review of it. I was waiting till I got darker, and I usually get a little bit darker in the summer so that this would better match me. Regardless, I've been testing it out because it matches me well enough. I can make it work. Anyway, this is available at Target. I'll go ahead and put the price of it on the screen because I don't remember off the top of my head. But so what we'll do today is a demo and then a review at the end. So hold on a second and I'll come back to apply this on my face. Alright, I've got you all zoomed in now because I want you to see exactly how this applies, and I am going to go ahead and it's got this kind of squeezy tube applicator to it, and I'm just going to go ahead and squeeze it right out of the container and into my face because I find that it is really easy to do that with this one. Usually when I see people do this kind of thing, I'm like, what the hell are you doing? So I've kind of basically done streaks of it on my cheek here. I'll do some in my forehead, and I'll just do half my face right now. My favorite way of applying it is with the beauty sponge. This one is from Morphe brushes. You can see it's really well used and worn out and the color's faded, but whatevs. Okay, so super easy to spread out and blend on my face, as you can see on here. So just kind of a light layer of it. As you can tell, it's not going to cover up everything on my face. It's not full coverage. It isn't going to hide any of my acne scarrings or my hyperpigmentation. It just kind of evens out the skin color a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and apply a little bit of extra foundation on my cheeks and on my nose here, which I do tend to do. And I think I applied a little bit too much on here, but hopefully you can see. I picked a really warm tone, and I knew I was picking up a really warm tone. In the back of the packaging, it tells you a number. This is 650 warm. So they have neutral and cool tone shades as well. I knew I was getting a warm tone, but it is really obvious if you put a little bit more product on your face that it's warm. Okay, so now you can see the side by side, so a kind of one layer with a little bit of extra application, extra product on the cheeks, right? So it's got a decent coverage, it's got a matte finish, and I really like that. I look for that in a foundation, so yeah. really nice, I think, in terms of ease of application, matte finish, and layers nicely. So I'll go ahead and finish my face, and then we can talk about it again. So once again, you can see on here how easy it is to apply this with a beauty sponge. Alright, and so you can tell on my face right now that this is the side where I layered a little bit extra on my cheek, and this is the side without it. So you can see once again that you can build this foundation up a little bit to get a little bit of extra coverage. So I'm going to go ahead and do that over here. Alright, there we go. That is the full face with the foundation. So I'll go ahead and finish applying my face makeup, and I'll come back with the review. Alright, and I'm back with the full face of makeup. So I did go ahead and do cream and powder bronzer. My cream bronzer was from the Makeup Forever Pro Sculpting Palette. This is the one in number 40. It's medium dark. The powder bronzer is from the Kat Von D Shady Business number 1. I don't think they make this anymore, but I'm trying to use that one up. Then on my cheeks for blush, I put in the center blush here, which is called, let me check real quick, Amaretto? Yes, Amaretto blush from the Becca and Jaclyn Hill face palette. And then I also used the two highlights in here, which are Champagne Pop and Prosecco Pop. Mix those and put those on my cheek. It's not super highlighty or anything, but I wanted to let you know that those are the face products that I have on. I didn't put in any setting powder. I don't have any setting spray on. So other than kind of the cheek products that I have on, the rest is the foundation. So hopefully you can tell that this foundation sits very nicely on the face. It like meshes in really well. But there are a few tricks to getting it to like sit well on the face, because initially I tried it with one of these pore filling primers, which are very silicone-y, that's the word. So I was using this Mally Beauty Perfect Prep Primer, and this one's way too silicone-y to use with this foundation. It just doesn't mix well with it. And when I was using it with this primer, the foundation would like sit on top and like look weird, patchy. It didn't mesh well. At first I was like, my god, this foundation's really terrible. But no, it was just the mixture of primer and foundation that did not work well. As soon as I switched to a different kind of primer, I was totally fine. So the primers that I've been using this with, I've used the Too Faced Primed and Peachy primer, which is is it a water-based primer? I don't have the ingredients on here, but it's a much more moisturizing primer. That worked really well with the foundation. I've also used this Makeup Forever mattifying primer. That one worked well with it too. So just those are the ones that I've been using with it that work well. So just take a look at the primers you have and try to avoid using it with a really silicone primer. So the other trick that I found for it was the beauty sponge. You have to use a beauty sponge with this primer. I tried using a brush, which is, I go back and forth in terms of what I like to use with my foundation. And when I started using this foundation, I was really into using brushes to apply it. It does not, it doesn't help blend the foundation out when you use a brush. It does, you can do it. It tends to, again, help the foundation sit on the skin rather than kind of act as one with the skin. So, and it said, then I took a look at the back and it says, directions for best results, apply with a sponge built to full coverage by layering as needed. So if I'd only looked at the back of the product, I would have known perfectly well what it was to use a sponge. So anyway, I wanted to make sure and say that on here. It does say that it's a matte foundation, and it very much is a matte foundation. If you don't like matte foundations, you're not going to like this. This is quite matte. But again, if you use the right primer and applicator, I think it does matte. It looks as natural as a matte foundation is going to look, right? Okay, so it looks beautifully, applies really well, spreads out evenly as you saw in the demo. Doesn't last at all. This is going to depend on your own skin type. If you don't know, I have very oily skin, like the oiliest of the oiliest skin. I find it like I don't just get oily in the T-zone, I get oily all over my face, and without the right foundation I end up looking super greasy at the end of the day. So my experience with foundations is not the same that everybody else has. So in part because of my oiliness is why I like matte foundations. This one is matte, but it doesn't last all day on me. So I can go 3 to 4 hours before I begin seeing the oil peek through and start breaking down the foundation a little bit. Now, I've had some really bad experiences with foundations where as soon as the oil starts peeking through, it just destroys the foundation and makes my face look and feel awful. This is not the case. At around the 3 or 4 hour mark, it begins to break down the foundation and the oils peek through, but it doesn't destroy the foundation. Like my oils don't completely win that fight. It's just engaged in a fight with the darn foundation. If you have just normal oily skin, I think you'll be fine. If you have normal skin, you'll be fine. If you have dry skin, I don't know how this would work on you. I've had some dry patches while wearing this foundation because I was sick for a while when I was testing this out, and I have like a little area down here where I'm fighting some acne it has some dryness. So it hasn't been super terrible, but because my dry patches have been super small, I can't say that this would work great on dry skin either. So just FYI for those of you that have dry skin, I don't know if I would recommend this for you. So for those of us with super oily skin, you have to be really wary. So however, that is not a deal breaker for me. The foundation and the oils peeking through at hour 3 or 4 is not a deal breaker for me because a lot of foundations do that, right? When you have super oily skin, it's just a fact of life that your oils peek through. So my next step with a foundation that does this is, okay, but can I set my face? What happens if I set my face with powder? What happens if I use a setting spray? Does that make a difference? Will it make the foundation last longer? And in this case, the answer is yes. And the answer was actually better than in other cases. With some foundations, you have to find the right powder to put on top of it. Like you have to find a really ultra matte oil controlling powder to mix with a foundation that gets broken down by oil. This one I found was not very nitpicky in that any and all powders I used with this foundation helped it last longer. So things that I used with it. I used the Urban Decay Naked Skin Ultra Definition Powder Foundation. This is what it looks like. That set really nicely on top of it, and it helped the foundation last all day. So what do I mean when I say all day? Because what I realized is that people have a different definition of what all day means for them. Most foundations kind of advertise like an 8-hour workday longevity, but I have found that that does not work for me. 8 hours does not cover my workday. If I'm up at 6, 7 in the morning and don't take my makeup off till 10, 11 p.m., that's not 8 hours. I need my foundation to last longer. And this one does it. So a 12, 14-hour day, as long as I set it, it will work. And I only have to set the one time. This is what I found so appealing about this foundation, was that even though I had to set it, I just have to set it once. I don't have to touch up throughout the day, which with other foundations you might have to. With this one, I did not find I had to do it. So other powders I used with this that worked well was the Too Faced Peach Perfect. It got to the point to where I was kind of testing out different powders to see, because I'm going to go through a whole review of the powders that I own. The Cover FX mattifying powder worked beautifully with it. The Cover FX translucent setting powder also worked. But my favorite were the Cover FX and the Too Faced Peach Perfect. Cover FX mattifying, I mean. Worked beautifully, and I didn't even have to like put a ton of powder on top. So what I would do is go in with this, and I'm gonna go in today with my Beauty Bakery setting powder in yellow. Is it yellow or banana? It's yellow. Swirl that a little bit in there, and I don't have a ton, and I set it on top of that foundation. But hopefully you can tell that I'm not putting a ton of powder on my face. Literally, that will do the trick. You just need some light powder on top of your face, and my foundation will last the rest of the day. So really good in terms of that. So if you don't like doing that, if you don't like setting your face, and you have a really oily skin, then I would avoid it. But if you don't mind setting your face with some powder foundation or some setting powder, then I might want to give it a shot. It's not the most expensive foundation at Target, but I'm finding that I really like it. I like the finish of it. I like the way it looks on my face. I would like the way it works with other products that I own. So overall, it was a hit for me, with that one caveat that I have to set it. In terms of color matching, I think it matches me pretty nicely right now when I have more color on my face. During the winter months, it's not going to match me. That's when I get the least amount of color, and then it's too dark for me. So what I suggest, because you can't test it out in store, please don't open it and test it out in store. Oh, that's so gross. I've seen people screw up the Target display of these foundations. Don't do that. Go on to Haley Beauty's Instagram. I'll list it down below, and I'll list their website, because they try to help you out in terms of finding the right match. If I'd gone, I think, one lighter than this, I would have been okay, and all year round, but I didn't, and I didn't feel like returning it. So, and I knew I was going to be getting a lot more color during the summer, so this matches me very nicely right now. Normally I am an NC 42 in matte foundations. So if you're a little bit darker than me, this might be a good match for you. It's the 650 Warm. They do have cool and neutral undertones, and it'll say in the back, it'll say the number and then warm, cool, or neutral. So that's a huge help. But take a quick look at their Instagram and at their online store for matching help, because that's way better than opening a packaging of foundation at Target. Please don't do that. Anyway, that's it for me. This is a foundation that I'm pretty happy with, one that I will continue to use. I'm going to put it aside for now, because I have one more foundation I want to test for you all, and then I am going to work on panning some of my non-cruelty free foundations to get those out of my collection. But it's worth checking out if you're interested in it, or if you've been taking a look at this foundation. Let me know if you're gonna go pick it up. Like I said, those of us with oily skin might want to be a little bit careful, but it's workable. So thank you so much for watching. That is it for me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.